Terri Bennett, recording Terri Bennett's presentation, Placerville Arts Association member meeting.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Terri Bennett, and I am very honored to be here today doing this presentation for you. And thank you, Linnell, and the Placerville Art Association, and all of you that are here. I'm going to be talking about public art and doing it through the lens of my work, which is sculpture. I'm a second generation sculptor, but also showing how that translates into other art mediums and how many opportunities we actually have available today, which is really exciting. All right.
That went 2.
What?
That's on slide 3. I'm gonna take you back to slide 2.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm not very technical. Okay, today's conversation is going to talk about what public art is, why public art matters, my path as a sculptor, real public art project examples, and how artists can find public art opportunities, the differences between RFPs, RFQs, scoring and proposals, and practical next steps to get started. What is public art? A working definition is artwork created for the public realm. It is visually or physically accessible to the public and created for shared environments. Why public art matters. Public art creates identity. It tells community stories. It honors history. It invites connection, and it turns spaces into landmarks. So when you have public art in public spaces in your communities, people that visit, they remember that. You know, it's something that really sticks with them.
Do you guys know where this piece of art is?
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
This is the artwork, the mural that's on the side of the near Save Bar.
It's on a PG&E building, and it was donated by Wendy Thomas and her mother.
Exactly, and I don't have the artist's name. I should.
Yeah, and I don't either. She wasn't from our local area.
Yeah, I think she was from Half Moon Bay or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wendy Thomas donated that. Art is how we beautify space. From living rooms to Main Street, art changes the feeling of an environment. The spaces we share become meaningful when art is woven into them, shaping how we feel, how we move, and how we connect to place. It brings beauty into everyday life. This is, I'm sure you all recognize, a banner on parade photo.
And that's also by one of our artists, Steve Ellenberg.
Thank you. A little bit about my story. I was born in Roseville, but raised up in Lake Tahoe, on the west shore of Lake Tahoe. And when I was about 11 years old, my father and my uncle were identical twin brothers, Tom and Bob Bennett. And they started in the 60s. They had a gas station in Roseville. And when they were bored, they started welding coat hangers together and playing with, welding wire sculptures out of coat hangers, and then they went on to create these amazing wire sculptures that are so intricate. Like there's one still today that Clint Eastwood bought at the Hog's Breath Inn in Carmel. It's been there since 1970s, and but then they had this vision of creating bronze, this sleek fluid bronze, and they, in order to get the finish that they wanted, they actually had to build their own foundry. So they built our first foundry in Lake Tahoe. My uncle lived across the street from us, and we started pouring in the basement of his house, little tiny pieces, and doing shows down at the Hyatt Regency in Carmel, or in San Francisco. And eventually they just started growing and ended up moving to Placerville, where we had a foundry on Greenstone Road for over 20 years. And so a lot of people probably remember Bennett Sculpture. And I started sculpting in the early 80s when I was living up in Camino. And I started sculpting dolphins and whales and marine life, and started showing my work in Hawaii which I showed over there for over 25 years, and was very blessed to be able to raise my daughter off of my work. The dolphins started coming to me in my dreams, and I just started sculpting them with no real plan, but everything, it was one of those magical things that just came together. This is my father and my uncle, identical twin brothers.
Yes, they are.
Mom and Bob Bennett. They built quite a legacy. At one time we had Bennett sculpture galleries all over the West Coast, and at one time we had over 20 galleries that were just all sculpture galleries. Carmel, San Francisco, La Jolla, Monterey, Palm Springs, Waikiki, Chicago, all over.
So Terry, what happened to the gas station?
It was an old mobile station on Vernon Street, and now it's yeah, but part of their, just how they, you know.
That's how they started.
How they started, and being twins, that they were always really competitive with each other, so they always push each other, like, look what I did. Oh, well, I'm gonna do it better than that, you know, so they just kept going, and they really did some really, really remarkable things. Sorry, I'm not very good at this, apparently. So a little bit about sculpting, and my process is, I learned to weld as they did in that gas station in the 1960s, and to weld my armatures, I use oxyacetylene, so it's gas welding. And what they really taught me to do is to actually sketch three-dimensionally in wire, so it's almost like a line drawing that I do in wire. And then from there I do the detail work in clay or wax or Bondo in order to cast in bronze.
So Terry, a question. Were the brothers self-taught?
Yes,
Okay. And you learned from them?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep, I pretty much grew up in the foundry and family business. So nature, wildlife, and conservation. I've always done a lot of conservation work and working with different groups and stuff. And so I always tell artists, you know, and people getting started, like, mostly as artists, we do what we love anyway, you know, but it's a good way to break into working with groups and things, doing what you love, and also supporting them and creating opportunities from that. Public art as storytelling. Strong artwork responds to place, community, history, movement, materials, and people. This is the sculpture at the roundabout in Camino, at the gateway to Apple Hill. And at the time, like 2020, when COVID happened and everything, they were doing this freeway underpass. And as a lot of you know, they had the whole thing closed for, it was supposed to be 6 months, and it ended up being closed for 2 years. And my studio was right up where Blue Barn is now. It was right behind there. So when they finally got it open 2 years later and got the roundabout in, I wanted to do something for the community, and so I had this idea to create a sculpture at that roundabout. So I contacted our county supervisor, Wendy Thomas, and I wrote her an email and I said, hey, I have this idea and I would really love to do this. And she was just like, yes, I want to do it. And so this is an example too of, you know, how we can think outside the box. Like, there's public art calls and stuff, but if you have an idea, don't be afraid to put it out there and contact people, you know, in charge, and get your idea moving. And a lot of times that's the way things happen, and that's actually how a lot of things have happened for me. These are two monumental sculptures that my father and my uncle were commissioned to do in the early 80s by Greg Lucanville. They were 16-foot bronze sculptures, and they were placed at the original Argo Arena. So there was one sculpture on each side of the arena. this Footsteps of Our Past Suspended in Time. This is an art installation that I did last summer. I installed it in South Lake Tahoe at Lakeview Commons Beach. And it was an RFP, which is a request for proposal. At the time I was working on something and I had like 3 days to do it. And I was like, no way, there's no way. But there's something I call seeding your imagination, and I was working on another project, but I just had that going in my mind, and all of a sudden I had this idea and it came to me fully formed, Footsteps of Our Past Suspended in Time. And I told my daughter and she's like, let's do it. And we sat at the table for like 12 hours and got it in like 5 minutes before the deadline. And I got chosen, and it was just, I did like a quick sketch of it. But this is right on Lake Tahoe at Lakeview Commons Beach. They didn't want anything large and obstructive of the lake. So I came up with this idea to create these sculptures and have them suspended inside of these stainless steel mesh cubes. So they actually look like they're floating on the lake if you look through them. And they also become a part of the landscape. Like this view here is from the sunset, so it actually becomes almost a painting with the sculpture. So it changes with the light and the different times of day. There are 4 sculptures. One is of a bear, one is a Washoe basket weaver, and then the sailboat, which is a double-masted schooner, was the original sailboat mail delivery system for Lake Tahoe. And then the 4th one is a skier. And then along with that, what we did is so it was Footsteps of Our Past, so I wanted to have kind of an interactive portion of this where people could walk through it, and bringing in the history of the Washoe people that walked on those shores before us. We met with Washoe elders and took castings, foot castings of their feet, and then cast them in bronze and had them installed along the rock wall. Here's another view. You can see the bear, the basket weaver, not the skier so much. But so a lot of, with public art is having that interaction with the public and different views as you walk around it at different times. This here again is the Camino Gateway sculpture, which we really worked with the community on this. We did a public survey with the community of Camino and Apple Hill, and found out what was important for everybody, and that process informed the images that we actually had laser cut into these steel panels, this Corten steel. And this sculpture is 10 foot by 10 foot. There's me and my daughter. She helped me do the computer work for the graphics.
That's beautiful.
Another opportunity for artists is memorial sculptures or memorial works at memorials. There's different types of things, murals that are done in memory, and other types of work. This here was fallen officer. The city of Rancho Cordova, the Rancho Cordova Police Department lost their first officer in 2018, Mark Stasiak. He was only 26 years old, and he was shot going to a disturbance call at a Pep Boys. So I met with the family and his fiance, or he was a newlywed, actually they were married. And what we did is we wanted to incorporate not only him in his passing, but also what he loved to do in his life. So we did a bas relief on the front of this form of him hiking, scuba diving, fishing, and then with his lovely wife. And then with the new technologies that are available today, we took his actual badge and had it 3D scanned and enlarged, and then we cast it in bronze. So that's actually his badge and his patches, his sheriff's patch and Sacramento County Sheriff patch.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a flag on the back, and he was of Russian heritage, and then there's an inscription in his language on the back. I don't know if she put that on here, probably not. So behind the installation, when you go to install something like this in a public space, a lot of times you have to pay prevailing wage, you have to hire contractors, you know, it's a pretty big deal. You have to get permits, and there's a lot of site preparation that has to happen. This one here, we had to get a crane and have it installed on the pedestal here. This is another sculpture I did called Prayer for Peace. It's a 12-foot sculpture that I did in honor of 9/11. After 9/11 happened, I kept having this vision of praying for peace and doing a fountain where instead of tossing a coin, the offering would be to make a prayer for peace. And this is installed in Lubbock, Texas at a peace park. This is blue. This is a life-size horse sculpture that I welded 2 years ago doing an artist residency at Buffalo Creek Art Center in Gardnerville. And that's another thing that's really great is to apply for residencies, because you never know what kind of opportunities come from that, and you get experience, you get away from your normal life, and you get to immerse yourself in work. I took this on and it was a little insane of me to do, and I didn't finish it in a month. It was a month-long residency. I had to go back and work on it some more, but he has a sculpture park there in Gardnerville, and if you ever get up that way, he only opens it once a month from June through October. You can get on his mailing list. He has 30 acres, probably over 50 large scale sculptures, ponds. It's really amazing. And this is Spirit of the Red Hawk. I did this for the Red Hawk Casino. I worked with an architect out of Atlanta that was working on this project. And so that's also another avenue outside of the public art calls, is working with developers, architects, you know, there's just a lot of other ways to do that. This is a sculpture I did for the Space Foundation, commemorating the 30-year space shuttle program. So I have one on display at NASA headquarters and the Space Foundation headquarters. There were 5 different space shuttles in the space shuttle program. So the blades represent each of the 5 different shuttles, and then the space shuttle kind of piercing through the atmosphere. What counts as public art? So we have the traditional forms. A lot of people think of sculpture. Obviously, I think of sculpture, but I think it's really exciting that we have so many other opportunities outside of sculpture now. Murals, utility boxes, benches, wall art, memorials, functional and kinetic art. There's a lot of different opportunities there. Like the roundabout over in Auburn that they just installed, they selected a glass artist for that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But there's just a lot of different opportunities inside hospitals, you know, hanging art, ceramic art, like I said, murals, and today's expanding public art field, placemaking and experience. So yeah, there's transportation and infrastructure art, creative placemaking, like the roundabouts are going in, as we all know, they're going in everywhere, and that's created a whole lot of opportunities for art in roundabouts. And something I wanted to mention, looking back on the roundabout sculpture for Camino, is even you know, painters and illustrators and stuff, you can have work laser cut onto metal panels, you know, and you can design things that actually becomes your canvas, and it's a sculpture and it's still your painting at the same time. So that's also another thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about that. Opportunities in public art, where to find public art calls for artists, artist rosters, city and county projects. This is another idea that is something outside of the box, but communities can do, and I think it would be really cool for our community to do something. Like Folsom did the hearts all around Folsom, and they had artists paint the hearts and put them all around town. Carmel did the same thing. They had, in New Mexico, they had horses. I have spoke with some people about that, and we had some ideas about, you know, maybe gold nuggets or something, like a 2-foot tall piece. You have those cast in fiberglass, and then you have a call for arts, and then artists are selected to paint on those, and then you put them throughout the community. So it might be fun to explore that and see what could be cool for our community.
I think we're gonna paint the trash cans. It's
Yeah.
looking like Placerville's gonna paint the trash cans, so
Yeah.
that's a start.
Yeah, I
Start.
heard Waste Management was gonna do that, and
Make sure you don't get a test up.
something else. I know there's something underway for for Main Street in Placerville that Arts and Culture El Dorado is working on, and they have an idea to do some bump outs along Main Street, and there'll be sculptures placed on the bump outs. So that's something to look at, because those could be multimedia pieces. They're not gonna be huge, you know, so yeah, that's something that it would be really fantastic to see.
And then Squaw Valley recently did an RFP a few months ago for wrapping some gondolas, ski gondolas.
Yeah, actually it was Heavenly, and
Heavenly, there you go.
Arts and Culture El Dorado was the lead on that. My daughter, Terri Bennett, is actually the public art coordinator for Arts and Culture El Dorado, and so she led that project, and this Wednesday they're gonna have the unveiling, but they commissioned
Nice.
a painter to do wraps on the gondolas up there. So that's another opportunity. It just seems like right now we're kind of having an art renaissance where there's just more opportunities, you know, coming up every day, and I think more people than ever appreciating art and public art, you know, and really engaging the community in it. So finding public art opportunities, there's a lot of public art platforms are called for entry. The Cafe Public Artists. I do have a 2-page resource printout that I did, and so after we're done, if anybody wants to give me their email, I can send you the PDF on that. And also the City of Santa Barbara Arts and Culture, they recently did a workshop series. It's a 9-part series where you can go in and you can watch it on your own, and it's very great. It goes through all of the opportunities and gives you just a lot of information on public art, and it's free. And I have that on that also. Okay, where are we at time-wise? Am I going too fast?
You're about
or am I
halfway
going too
there.
slow? What?
About halfway there.
Okay. So, yeah, again, we have a lot of opportunities in our area. The Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, the City of Roseville has a public art program, City of Folsom Arts and Culture Commission, California Arts Council, and then additional sources is like the California State University procurement opportunities is something that a lot of people don't think of, but a lot of universities buy artwork to have on campus, and so it's another really great opportunity. And a lot of these are not listed on national calls, so sometimes, you know, you have to kind of go digging for them. So I do have those on the resources thing. These are my sculptures, up in Lake Tahoe at night.
They look really nice at night.
Yeah, they're really cool at night. So they're made out of stainless steel mesh, and when you're out there at night, they, you know, people are like, what is it? Is it glass? You know, because the light just really picks up the stainless steel, and it looks, with the black background, looks really cool.
Terry, how long have they been up there?
I installed them last August,
Last August, almost a year.
or early September, I
Do
guess.
you ever worry about vandalism?
You know, it's always, vandalism is always a thing. Like we had the wall up, the underpass up in Camino, sprayed with graffiti, but they painted that up real quick. We haven't had, you know, we haven't had any, bad luck with that. I'm hoping they do some more landscaping. This was through the, City of South Lake Tahoe Parks and Rec Department. That's who I work with. And on this project, you know, there were so many hidden things. This is the first time I actually worked with a city, and after we got like the whole contract, the RFP, none of it mentioned that 20% of the budget was supposed to go to ADA compliance, which is a big deal. Luckily, they already had it in this area, so I didn't have to do that. But that's another thing. It's like when you're applying for things, especially for the RFP, which is a request for proposal, you really have to look at all the costs and ask questions so you don't end up getting burned on it, you know? Because on these also, I had to go through the commercial building permit process with the City of South Lake Tahoe. So, yeah, it was daunting, you know, and then I had a deadline and I couldn't even get started until I went through all of this permitting and stuff, and hiring professional contractors, you know, paying prevailing wage, and so there's a lot of costs involved.
And this could come as a real surprise, especially to a mural painter who may not realize that in California now, if you're gonna put a mural in a public space, you have to have a painting contractor involved in the project. And that's a big surprise, because you're thinking you could just go out there with your brushes and take care of it, and you just may not be able to.
No, and you also have to have permits. A lot of times it's kind of like you have to go through the sign permit process. You have to have, everything has to be, you know, verified and approved. You might need like a lift, you know, there's a lot of different supplies that you need, special paints and all of that, of course.
But is any of these expenses out of your pocket?
All of it.
And she may get reimbursed by the person who's buying the art. For instance, the gondola project was offering artist compensation of $4,000, I think. Anyway, there was money in there for the artist, but then the artist may have had some other expenses that they need to pay attention to, other than just giving over their art.
Yeah, and each job is different. That's why you really have to ask questions, especially when you're given a budget, you know, and then you're putting, like the Tahoe project, the budget was $100,000. And like I said, I did it kind of on the cuff, right? So there was a lot of things I didn't really get to ask questions, and there was a lot of things that came up that I wasn't aware of, but everything was paid out. I had to pay for it out of my portion. Yeah.
But are you reimbursed?
No, that's part of the budget. So when they say, you know, it's a $5,000 budget or a $20,000 budget, a lot of times everything is on you. And so that's what, you know, you really have to do your homework and find out what is involved, because a lot of times they don't put it when you're filling out the actual, you know, the qualifications or the proposal. They don't actually tell you about it.
Wow.
So start local. It's really important to build your portfolio if you want to get into public art. It can sometimes be challenging because they want experienced artists. Well, how do you get experience? Well, you can start local and join your local arts organization like the Placerville Art Association. Apply for smaller local calls, the banners, the utility boxes, like the waste box, you know, all of that. If you can get your foot in the door, you're building your portfolio and you're showing that you can work on budget and on deadline and create beautiful professional work. So build your professional portfolio. And again, think outside the box. If you have an idea, you know, it's whatever it could be. Like, I think this building is really ugly and we should have a mural on it, you know, contact the owner, do, you know, have a fundraiser, do stuff. There's things that you can do to build that portfolio that may not be like going through a arduous application process, because it is hard to get your foot in the door. And I love thinking outside the box. I've created so many opportunities that way. Okay, so RFQ versus RFP. So an RFQ is a request for qualifications. So you fill out the application, and usually you have your portfolio, resume, artist statement, your bio, and a large example of your work. So it's a really good idea to, if you want to get into public art, to start working on that and have it all ready so you're not scrambling trying to put it all together. It's really important. Like, my daughter is the public art coordinator for Arts and Culture El Dorado, and she just went through this with the gondola wrap project, and so many artists wanted, you know, to be handheld, or they wanted to contact about every, you know, or they sent their proposals in and they weren't even complete. You know, they didn't have good work experience or good examples of their work in there, so it's a lot of work if you're not going to be thorough with it. So the other proposal is the RFP, which is a request for proposal. Now, a lot of times, I like this better, because if you have a really great idea, it can count a lot in the scoring system. So you can actually override some of the previous experience that way, having a really great idea, which is what happened for me with the South Lake Tahoe project. I had an idea, and I think it was given to me by God, because it was just a full download. The name of it, everything, just I saw it so clear, and it just worked. But yeah, so and then, you know, when you are doing a request for proposal, you have to present your work in the best way possible. You can do renderings. A lot of your painters and drawing and illustrations and stuff, so you're really good at that. There's also groups you can hire, like Fiverr and Upwork. There's people you can send your work to, and you can take a picture of the location that you're proposing the artwork for, and they will put it all together for you on a rendering, so it looks like it's already done, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so core materials for a strong RFQ: your resume, your artist statement, your bio, portfolio work, and references. And we're really lucky today too that we have AI like ChatGPT and stuff, because you can put in the RFQ into something like ChatGPT, and then it'll help organize it for you and tell you what you're missing and stuff, because sometimes these are multi-page applications. They're very complicated, and it can be hard. So it's nice to have those tools to use. I suck at that. A strong RFP, do your research and preparation, visit the site if possible, do your homework, and then research the community, understand what the goals are of the community and what might reflect that, the history, create a professional rendering, build a clear budget, show that you can execute the idea. So again, about the budget, you know, make sure you go to the question and answer portion and ask the questions. Ask what is your responsibility as the artist with the money that's provided in the budget. It's really important. Budgeting and execution, again, the materials, permit fees, licensing fees, like for sculpture, I had to hire a structural engineer, contractor, transportation and delivery. A lot of times you have to pay prevailing wage for anybody to work on a public works project. I also had to get a public works contractor's license. So there was a lot involved. And then any signs or plaques that you know want to have so people know who created it. How the scoring system works. There's like a Rubik's scoring system. There's different scoring systems for the public art process, and every single project they'll have a different scoring system that they'll use. But a lot of times it's good to find out what scoring system they use, because then you can find out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And like I said, with the RP, you can, you know, it might be 20% of the score for experience, 20% for your execution, your idea, and so forth. So it's really important to find out how that scoring system works so you can use it to your advantage. Presenting your idea, having clarity and confidence in your idea, be clear, be visual, be prepared, explain the site connection, and show the materials and scale of the work that you're going to do. So it's really, really important to be very clear on what you're going to create in that space and be able to get that across. Using AI and digital tools, again, tools like ChatGPT can help you organize long applications, help you with drafting checklists, and all of your written statements. It can edit them for you, budget planning, proposal structure, and deadline tracking. And rejection is part of the process. Not every opportunity is meant for you. So I try to look at it as every opportunity is a learning experience. And if I'm not selected, a lot of times you can ask the person in charge of that opportunity for your score, or to have a one-on-one evaluation, which is really helpful because you'll get feedback on why you weren't selected, and this will help you as you move forward. And then keep applying, keep dreaming. Dream big, prepare well. So get involved, build your portfolio, apply locally, and every public art career begins with a single step. Start where you are with what you have. Local projects build confidence, skills, and a portfolio that opens doors to larger commissions. The path forward is built one application, one connection, and one completed project at a time. A lot of times it can feel very intimidating and overwhelming to step into this public art sphere. So just remember that everybody started somewhere, and you just take it one part at a time. But the greatest thing about public art is it leaves something behind. It's a gift to the community, and it's one of the ways we leave beauty, memory, and meaning in the places that we share and visit. So I think that's it. And I didn't look at my notes, so I was nervous. I had like a bunch of notes, but I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry, Shirley.
That's okay.
So I think maybe some of us are still not quite sure about how you, and I know you don't do this for the money. Well, maybe you do, but for the creative process also. But I think some of Kathy's questions, it's going through her head. How do you get reimbursed? No, you pick a project that says, this is our budget, and part of your planning your project is also going to be your profit margin, right?
Exactly.
So you gotta take all this stuff into consideration, but then you certainly wanna make money doing it,
Exactly.
so you've gotta work with them.
And you wanna make sure you have yourself covered, and you're not going in the hole, because some of these places, they might have a big ask for their budget, and if you're not careful, if you don't ask questions, because like I said, when I did the RFP for the South Lake Tahoe, which is for the city of South Lake Tahoe, none of that, I did not know I had to go through a commercial building permit process and pay for it. They didn't have on that application that I had to get a public works contractor's license. And then the whole ADA thing, which is a big thing that's happening in a lot of public spaces now. And sometimes they actually push that onto the artist's responsibility if people can have access. Like for the South Tahoe project, I wanted to have bronze plaques go along that wall between the bronze footprints, explaining the history, and I had it all lined out. But when I got to the approval process for the plaques, they couldn't approve those unless they were also offered in Braille for ADA compliance. And there was no way, like a Braille sign would, each one, there was no way, and it not only Braille, but it had to be, each one had to be on a pedestal, it had to be at a certain height, all of this stuff. So I couldn't even do the bronze plaques. I had to scratch that whole thing, and I could just, you can't have any kind of a sign that's tactile unless it's Braille in the public sphere anymore. So I had to have a sign that had to sit back so many feet from the installation and so forth. So yeah, just a lot of unexpected things come up. But that's a good question.
And if they had pressed you because, for instance, you had said in your proposal that you were going to provide this signage,
Yeah.
and they had pressed you on providing Braille signs, then that would have been a true budget killer because of the size that those would have had to be to accommodate it. So at least the
You're
people
right.
who were buying it from you worked
Yeah.
with you on that aspect. But you can really paint yourself into a corner literally with
Yeah.
these kind of projects if you're not careful.
Yeah, because there were so many hidden expenses, and especially if they would have taken that 20%. Because the first few meetings I sat down and started having with them after they selected me, and then they're telling, like, oh, well, 20% of the budget has to be for ADA compliance. You have to have a ramp, you have to build all this stuff. So that would have been $20,000 right off the top. And I was panicking, and then going through the process with the different, TRPA, all these different groups are involved. Then I found out, well, they had already done that work the year prior, otherwise it would have been my responsibility. And I did put in the proposal, I put the bronze plaques in the proposal because it was really important to me, because it really talked about the history, like the double-masted schooner was the first mail delivery system in Tahoe, and the Washoe basket weaver, I wanted to really go into a lot of the history. So that was really unfortunate, and they didn't hold me to it, but they also didn't tell me up front that I had to provide it in Braille. And then I was like, oh, okay, we can do that, and then when I started looking at it, it's like for each letter, it was just way beyond the scope of what I could provide.
And so there are safer ways to get involved without jumping into a $100,000 proposal. For instance, you could start with Bill Robinson's Banners on Parade.
She's got a question.
Okay. You can do things like find a project like painting the Peach Shack at the Fossil's Peach Ranch. Steve Ellenberg did the peach there.
Yeah.
We also had one of our artists that participates with our group, Sierra Kaminsky, do the wall for the church, the I think it's Presbyterian Church that's near downtown. So there are ways that aren't this big budget, big risk that someone with as much experience as Terri can sweat when she takes on.
Yeah, and that's why I said to start small, you know, and start building your portfolio, and things like banners on parade is great. The waste receptacle project that's coming up, you know, things like that. And also seeing a building that you just keep looking at it and, wow, I have this idea that would be so beautiful on the side of it, you know, contact them and find a way to pay for it. If they won't pay for it, you can do fundraisers, you can think outside the box and do things to actually get your work out in public spaces. And there's just so many opportunities for that now. So.
There's a question back there.
This is not what you're talking about. Do you ever use a welder?
Like a MIG or?
It's a little that you use, you have to wear a mask and you use.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, that's a MIG. You have MIG or TIG welder, which are two different welding systems. I do have a MIG welder. So a MIG welder is kind of like a hot glue gun, you know, and it's like, you know, you have pedal, the wire runs through. You have to have a big mask because you have to be really careful with flash. But my process really goes back to the beginning of how my father and my uncle got started with the welded wire, and so I mostly use oxygen acetylene, which is gas welding. So when I'm welding like the horse, I will have a torch going in my hand for hours and hours and hours. It's like my paintbrush, right? I'm heating the wire and it's bending, you know, and I'm actually forming it and heating it at the same time. So if you have the other type of welder, like a MIG welder, you have to bend it by hand, and then you just like bzz, bzz, you know, but you're not like having a torch going all the time.
So it would take longer though to create something with a MIG welder then?
No, I would probably say it's much faster. Yeah, because you have to lay it all out. It's just it's like gas welding, the way I do it, it's kind of like an old school, like nobody really does it. So it's kind of cool that it's part of my history, and I love it. It's part of sculpting that I love the most, like, because it's so freeing and you're actually sketching three-dimensionally, and wire, you know, it's working with fire, and it's really great. Yeah, and I actually recently, I've been putting more process videos on like Instagram, and I recently had one of my welding videos. It was just a real quick, I was doing a bust of a horse for a wall piece that I'm doing for the Loveland Sculpture Show. And so it was just a real quick time lapse, you know, welding, and I got 1.2 million views on it.
Wow, wow.
Viral, so, yeah.
Cool.
And I have so much resistance on social media because I'm an introvert and I don't really like, look at me, you know, and then I was like, wow, you know, and that's pretty, you know, neat that and most of them were from other countries, you know. So yeah, never forget the power of that, you know, and connecting with people all over the world. So does anybody else have a question?
Do you do laser etching on metal for individuals?
Is there what?
Do you do laser etching for yourself?
No, for, say, if we wanted something etched on metal, do you do stuff like that?
I don't, but there are a lot of people that do, and that's such a cool thing. You can, if you have like a drawing or something, you know, you can have it put into a CAD file and you can give it to them, and they have laser printers where they can cut that out.
What about, say say, dipping a piece of art in bronze, do you do that for individuals?
Do I do bronze for?
Individuals, custom, is it a custom?
Oh yeah, I do commission work. I'm working on a piece right now for a lady that wants a bird for her garden sanctuary, or her bird sanctuary in her garden. So I do a lot of commission work. Yeah, and I also teach. You know, if anybody's interested in learning the process, I make all my own molds, and I do my wax work, and then ship the waxes off to the foundry where they're cast in the lost wax casting process.
Are you using a foundry offshore or in the US now?
I use a foundry in the US. I've never used foundries offshore. Right now, and for the last several years actually, I use a foundry up in Colorado, up near Loveland. And because there's a lot of cast-only foundries up there, and after owning our own foundry, it's really hard to pay full retail for foundries, and foundries in California are so expensive. And I have metal finishers and patina artists in Sacramento that used to work at a foundry that do all of the metal work, because I just don't like grinding on metal. So, yeah, so.
And do you teach welding or just more like the molding process?
Yes, I do. I do teach welding. Yeah.
You'll let us know when you're going to do a welding class?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the newsletter. You might get some students. Who knows?
It's super fun. It really is.
Is your studio in Camino?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Paul's got a question.
I would expect that a lot of the communities are kind of uneven in terms of their sophistication in getting public art. They might want it, but they don't really know how to do it themselves. And so they're kind of learning with you. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it is. And I also think that we have a real uptick in public art. I think it's really becoming, I just think art is becoming more and more appreciated. And even I've been reading about senior centers and retirement, you know, homes and stuff that are actually putting galleries in them, you know, with art and stuff to inspire people and bring visitors in to interact with the residents and stuff. So, you know, I just, yeah, it seems like, yeah.
What do you charge for a welding class?
Well,
$100,000.
Yeah. It would really just
Or less.
depend on, yeah, how long you wanted to weld and what you wanted to do. But I have some business cards, and yeah, connect with me, and like if it's, you know, for a couple hours, or if you wanted to make something specific or whatever.
Well, I just want my partner to know I have the acetylene and the oxygen, and plus I have a MIG. But
Okay.
my eyesight is so bad, I can't do it anymore, but I would, you know, I'd like him to learn how to use this stuff in the garage when he wants to weld something together or something, so he
Okay.
knows the process.
Yeah, the eyes is a big deal. Yeah, it's
But
becoming
he
harder
can
for
also
me.
make sculpture.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Great.
And no more questions?
Anybody else? Anything I missed?
Really interesting.
Would you like a copy of the newspaper clippings that I have of you, the recent?
Oh, you had a nice article this week.
I know, I didn't even know about it, until
Because
Saturday.
I can get your card and make you some copies, and I can send them to you if you like.
Okay, yeah, Sylvia brought this, for me.
Oh, she
She
But I know
got
my
one.
mom would love one.
So
She's my
that's-
biggest fan.
So this.
So she needs a second one.
Yeah, Okay. That's wonderful. That is, you done good, Sylvia.
I know, I had no idea either.
Yeah,
She
she writes the articles and, sends in pictures and they choose.
That I just could use all of it, and I just added a little thing here, a little thing there, so, yeah, she's a beautiful writer, so it was really, nice.
Thank you.
You did
Thank
good.
you. And yeah, like I said, I have, a 2-page document, with all of the, you know, websites and all of the resources and stuff to go to, and the link for the Santa Barbara Public Art, workshop, recording, which is really great. It's like 9 parts, it's like 9 hours, but, you know, it's something you can go to and watch for free and get a lot more information. And also, I'm available if anybody ever has any questions or needs help with anything too.
Thank you.
And I hope we have more
Terri.
opportunities here in our area. I know Arts and Culture El Dorado, you know, they're trying to, they have, planned up in Myers, there's the two new roundabouts up there, have been approved for, sculptures. So there'll be 2 sculptures going in the roundabouts up in Myers. And I know that there's other opportunities around, and hopefully the bump outs and anything else we can think of. We can think outside the box and make our own opportunities, right?
I've seen some crossovers I was gonna mention. When you come to my house on art tour, one of the things you see as you're winding your way there is this wonderful sculpture that a fellow did. I'm not even sure he's an artist, but he had a tree that the top had come off of, and so he just has this very tall tree. He built a nest of rebar on the top of the tree and then put a gimbaled eagle on top of that. So what he's done is he's created a public sculpture on private property, because everyone that comes and goes in our neighborhood sees that wonderful sculpture that he's created. And like I say, I don't even think he's an artist. I think he's a guy that had a dream about what he could do with his tree.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that you guys can think of and do on your own property that allows you to share those kind of experiences with your neighbors. It's a wonderful thing, and people that have come up, I know Terry's seen it as she's come up there, and you know, it's just really noticeable when you drive up to my property, and it's
so great, and yeah, and it's also good to remember, like, for the Camino roundabout, there was not a call for art for that or anything. I contacted the county supervisor, you know, and I said, hey, I have this idea, and she was getting ready to retire. She wanted it to happen, and she got in there, and we got the support. It was funded publicly, so it was funded by the growers and the wineries and stuff up in Apple Hill. And Wendy Thomas, her family put in a significant portion of it too. So, you know, if you have an idea, like, yeah, you don't have to wait for something to come to you. Like, there's doors that can be opened, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, like the Save the Earth Foundation has the rainbow encircling the earth, and I met the founder in the 90s when I was living down in LA, and I did a sculpture for the Save the Earth Foundation, and that led to a bunch of things, you know, and opportunities and celebrities and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
be creative, go and find it.
Yeah.
Watch for it to come to you. Thank you, Terry.
And one other thing I'd like to say, so my cousin Ashley, some of you might know her, Ashley Bennett Stoddard. She really started the art walk and stuff in Placerville. She had the Studio 420 down on Main Street down in the 90s. She lives in Monterey now, but she just started getting into sculpture a couple of years ago, and she wants to go big. So she just had this big dream. So she just jumped in. You know, she has the background of sculpture, but not really ever done her own. She paints tree ladies and stuff. So now she's working on 7 sculptures for Burning Man. Yeah, she's doing 7, they're called Freedom Dancers, and it's installation that she's taking to Burning Man this year, and it's 7 sculptures of these tree ladies in different stages of grief. So you go through this process, and they're all like from 10 to 12 feet tall. And she's doing a fundraiser at Bumgarner Winery on Saturday from 4 to 7. So if y'all want to come, she's going to bring a couple of her freedom dancers out there, and she's really made it a community thing where she welded the forms for the ladies, and then she's put wire mesh around them, and then she's doing the forms in papercrete. So it's concrete with paper mixed in, and she's having community members come and apply help with applying the papercrete on there, and she'll be doing that on Saturday at Bone Garden Winery.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yes.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Terry.